Today's encouragement was provided by Our Daily Bread Ministries.
Welcome to Fight for Life, a pro-life radio show discussing the ministry of First Choice Pregnancy Services here in Las Vegas. I'm Deborah, board member and executive director of First Choice Pregnancy Services.
And I'm Jessica, logistics specialist at First Choice Pregnancy Services.
We are ambassadors for the unborn. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. It's great to be with you today here on Fight for Life. Thanks for joining us. This is Deborah here with Jessica. We are your ambassadors on behalf of unborn babies everywhere, here to share real life stories and insights that we've experienced in this fight for life. We have a special person with us today. We've never brought on here one of our handymen. And we got our handyman with us today. But we're going to get some unique insights from Dave, as he's been hanging around First Choice for I don't know how many months now. But we're going to let Jess give the weekly update, and then we'll get to that.
Thanks, Deb. We're kicking off this broadcast with our weekly update so that you can stay connected to the First Choice Ministry and how many lives you are affecting by your support. From June 22nd to June 28th of 2023, First Choice provided 52 free pregnancy tests and 35 free ultrasounds to our patients. The patients that we serve are mainly abortion bound, but we do serve women from all walks of life, and it's important to reach each one of them with our free services so that we can speak up for their defenseless child in their womb that they are considering heavily to abort. If you'd like to join this conversation, or if you're interested in sponsoring this radio show, call into the radio station at 702-650-5588. And as Deb was saying, today's guest is our one and only David Garris from First Choice. He's our handyman. Tell us a little bit about who you are and how you came into the pro-life movement.
Well, good afternoon, and thanks for having me. I hope I'm not too loud.
You're good.
As they said, my name's David Garris. I believe in God. I am a loving person and solid in my beliefs. My passion's boating, and I'm a husband to my beautiful wife and father to my three amazing young adults. I'm a retired police officer with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, and I'm a decorated officer and received the Life Saving Award in 2001 and the Medal of Honor in 2005. I'm a forward-looking person, problem-solution-minded individual. I'm a blessed man and excel by advancing those around me. Currently, I'm a founder and coordinator for the Holdfast Nevada Foundation, a nonprofit. You can check us out on our website at holdfastnv.com. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, welcome.
So what you want to know really is how is our handyman on the radio with us today? Any of you guys that have been following us for any length of time have heard me talk about my life as a police wife. One day, I was super frustrated with not being able to get handymen to show up to help us with needs that we had to be done at First Choice. So I went into my police wives group and I said, hey, any of your guys' husbands handy? And his wife, Michelle, who's sitting off here at the side, offered up her husband to me as our handyman.
And what a blessing he's been ever since.
Do you know when that was, Dave?
It was quite a few months back.
That was last year,
I would say, yeah.
Yeah. So he came to First Choice and started helping us. And question is, did you have any idea what you were walking into when you came to help us, Dave?
That's a great story, actually. So, as she said, I retired from the police department. After that, I just started working as a handyman to keep myself busy. And I have a feeling that's when Michelle wanted to get me out of the house. So she had seen your post requesting assistance and said that it and then identified First Choice Pregnancy Center, and I had no clue. And with all my time since '97 to be in this valley, I was unaware of your facility. So at first I was very leery because I was under the impression it was an actual abortion clinic, and that kind of freaked me out. I'm like, I don't know if I feel good about that. And she immediately stopped me and said, no, this is a good thing. You need to do some more research. And ultimately, realizing that you were also with the Wives of Metro group, I realized this is something I needed to help out with. So from there, I showed up, and that's when Deb and I met, had the opportunity to see what you guys were involved in, and I got to tell you, what a miracle.
His brother's actually on the police department, and I know his brother and his sister-in-law pretty well.
Yes.
So I met him in retirement. So what would you say in your time with us? What would be the thing that you would take most from your time with us? Like, how has this influenced or opened your mind to the pro-life issue?
You know, up till meeting you, I really, I guess I never really put a lot of thought to it. I knew that abortion was certainly not something that I agree with at all, and I understand there are circumstances, but it was a topic that I wouldn't necessarily say I looked at it straight on. Now, having had the opportunity to meet you folks and see what you guys are actually all about, I can tell this is definitely God's movement, and I can't tell you how amazing it is to be a part of it, not just as a handyman, but actually as a support entity for you.
Amen.
He does great handyman work if you need a handyman.
But all your years on the police department, did you ever work that beat?
I didn't. The closest I got was as a traffic officer, or a couple times in a helicopter above, but never really realized the circumstances in which your facility is located. I consider it the ring of fire, as Johnny Cash would say.
Wow.
You have quite a challenging area that you play a role in, and I can tell you, having had the opportunity to be at your facility and see what you guys are about, is probably where I find my most find the energy to try to make it better. I see, I've had the opportunity to get the perspective of it as an outsider, and then add in the law enforcement, and then add in the aspect of being a father. When I first walked in there, I thought, wow, I could feel the energy. The people there are just amazing and really want to help out. When I watched watch young ladies or families walk in the front door, I wanted to see a better perspective from their eyes, what they were actually seeing and what you guys actually do. So I did that. I had the opportunity to work on lights and additional items out in the entry. And while I was there, I saw, quite honestly, a lot of people, a lot of unknowns, a lot of scared, just emotionally, tied up. And what are they about to see? What are they about to experience? From that point, the ladies in the front office were so welcoming. These girls were ushered back into the back rooms. They had private areas to have a minute to themselves, talk to the staff, and get a better idea of what you guys provided. From that point, I think the real miracle is the fact that you guys opened the door for them to come in and get an ultrasound to see the babies. Babies, whatever the circumstance is. And I believe that's the true miracle, because once you know the blessing that you have, it's not just gas or cramps. It's actually a living baby inside of you, and what a blessing that is.
So we were talking recently about graphic imagery.
Yes.
And Dave said, I said, when did you first see graphic imagery? And he said, after coming here, I went home and Googled it. And he educated himself as to what abortion was.
Yes.
And, working in law enforcement, you can talk about it. Law enforcement officers see a lot of very horrific things throughout their career. And so we got into a little conversation. Do you remember our conversation about this recently?
I do.
Do you want to weigh in on that? Share what kind of your perspective on like your career and what you saw, and then being exposed to that, having never seen it.
Yeah, I've never seen it from the perspective that you folks have seen it. My perspective as a law enforcement officer was, unfortunately, I did see. I've seen a lot of situations with children. Whether it be swimming pool drownings, which, by the way, be mindful, it is summertime. But I've also been in situations where I've seen folks that have actually attempted abortions on their own.
Oh,
and
gosh.
Unfortunately, it was actually very close to the facility that we're at right now, and I didn't realize that until I got here. So I could tell you it was definitely it was an eye-opening experience. I think that if there's anything that really stood out in law enforcement is the fact that, our intent is always to help. Sometimes we do have to be the hammer, or we have to be the person that is the enforcement agent, but you have to realize we come at it with an open heart, and we do come at it with the idea that we want to help everybody, whatever the circumstances may be. When you get into a situation where, you're trying to make a difference for folks, but you have to realize that you're limited, and you have to pull on the resources of others to be able to achieve your goals. And I would say that's probably the biggest learning lesson I have.
Would you say there's a parallel between you working with the police department and what you're doing now at First Choice?
Absolutely.
What
Absolutely.
would you say that is?
On this end, I don't have to arrest. I don't have to do any of the citations or anything else. If anything, I get to be a voice for you, which I, by all means, enjoy. I love to be able to sit back and tell people that you're not alone. If you have a situation that you want to discuss, and I can tell you, probably the best example I could give you would be how I want to help you. By creating the foundation of NV Holdfast Nevada, is for the purpose of helping you after you determine that, yes, we're gonna make this work. We're gonna have a family. We're gonna have the baby, and at that point, there's still a fear. There's still aspects of life that we all have. Where are we going to go with this? Like, is it an educational factor? Do you need your GED? Do you need advanced education, or even job, help with job placement? Maybe housing's an issue. And if housing's an issue, let's fix that. Let's talk. If, everything from, medical services, dental, vision, food, clothing, there are resources out there. I'm very, very intertwined with those resources. I know throughout the questions we're going to get there.
Stuff, yeah.
So,
which is funny because he and I were having a conversation a couple months ago when we were needing security, a new security officer, and this is when he and I really we were outside at my car. He walked me out to my car and carried some of my stuff for me, and then we stood there at my car for about an hour, probably talking, and I was like, "Oh, Dave, you're a visionary." And he's like, "Yeah, that's why you and I get along so well." And so we stood there at my car door for about an hour, and just a lot of different ideas and perspectives and thing. And that was one thing that I really enjoy about Dave. He comes to this issue. He's not up close to it like all of us that are down there at First Choice. So he brings a very different perspective. As somebody who's not been in that movement for his career as a cop. So we were talking recently, we had kind of a little brainstorming session with him and a couple other people I knew who are visionary folks, and we sat down to try and brainstorm some ideas for First Choice. And we were talking specifically about how the pro-choice movement, it came down to marketing is what it did. Getting a TV commercial or something. And a lot of people don't realize that it's not that easy for us to go approach different organizations for funds or to market because of the issue behind what we do and standing against abortion. And Dave was like, hey, you guys got to have a different approach about this. And I'm like, what? And he's like, tell us what your approach is.
Wow.
Do you remember how it was?
We talked quite a bit, and I do recall. I would tell you that abortion is ranked right up there with murder. We know that. I mean, it's just a different spelling. When it comes down to sitting back,
Amen.
And when it comes down to we sit here and we're talking about when you're making a decision that ultimately is going to affect not only you but your spirit. This isn't something that just happens. Mm-hmm. And I'm a guy. So I'm sitting back and I'm saying it from the perspective of just a guy looking at it saying, okay, how does this affect people? Well, not only have I seen how it affects people, but I know the long-term effects too. I've had these conversations. So to sit back and say, let's just say the word abortion and make that, or let's say pro-choice or pro-life, and you put labels on things. And as soon as you put labels on things, it's the easiest way for somebody to say, oh, I know about that, and turn your head. Mm-hmm. So instead of sitting back and saying pro-life, pro-choice, abortion, why don't we sit back and have the conversation that really is there? It's having a conversation about this is life. And at what point in time do we take the value of life and make it something we can throw away? I just don't see that. I mean, maybe I didn't think this way before I was a dad, but I can tell you, if you want to know if God exists, it's not hard. Just look at the eyes of your children, because that's where it's all about. So when we're going to sit back and have this conversation and we say, how do we get people motivated? How do we get people willing to talk about this topic? well, maybe it's not about using the A word or the M word, because we already know that's a key factor. It's sitting back and saying, how can we help you so that you're not so afraid to do this? To sit back and say, I have my daughter who's actually sitting here with us, and to have, and by the way, she's 12. So to have this conversation and have it frankly in front of a 12-year-old, it's very important, because I want her to know that this is where our heart's at. And how do we do that?
And he said, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. No.
I didn't know you had a continuing thought. I thought you were stopping there. Go ahead.
I'm a roller, I know. I apologize. So feel free to jump in anytime.
Well, the point with that thing, that conversation we had is he said, you could totally do a secular show, and you go into one of those shows and you don't say we're against abortion. You say, we stand for life, and we believe that when you educate people on life and you show them the life within them, they will in turn see that life, and they will become against abortion as a result of seeing that baby within them. And it was a totally different approach that he had. I was like, wow. Because he said, you guys are always going to get put back on your heels when you bring up the abortion thing, so why don't you go from another perspective, another approach?
Well, I'm really grateful that he's here speaking on behalf of fathers, because Proverbs 31:8 tells us, that we need to be speaking up for the voiceless. And he just said, I'm a voice, right? Well, not only are the babies completely voiceless in this, but oftentimes the fathers are. I remember watching a video one time of a father begging, crying, pleading on his hands and knees as the mother of his baby was going into a Planned Parenthood to abort their child. And he was just absolutely beside himself. And it's one of the most moving things I've ever seen on this fight for life. And that's exactly what you're here standing up for those voiceless babies and those voiceless fathers. Imagine how much further that spreads. Grandparents, siblings. I find out late in life, or others find out late in life, that they've had a sibling who is now dead that they never knew of. And that touches you. It affects you. You don't realize the things that you're going to have to then deal with and cope with. Post-abortion syndrome is not just for mothers.
It's real. Very real.
It touches so many other generations, levels, and layers of life.
But you got to attend our second annual memorial this past Saturday.
What
did you and Michelle think about that?
I'll tell you, we were very impressed. The fact that it's great to see so many people come out and support your cause, to sit back and be a voice for the unborn, but also for the awareness aspect. Everything from just getting the word out there and knowing that everybody that was there took a piece of your message, and all we need them to do is share it. The more you can share the message, the better we are.
It was such an awesome event.
What was your favorite part?
I don't know. I think the thing that most touched me out of that event was our client that got up to speak. I wasn't able to. Last year we had planned this event for June the 25th, knowing that a Supreme Court decision was coming down. Lo and behold, it came down the day before our event. I happened to be back home with my dad, and his health at that time had taken a turn, and so I'd talked to Olaf and some of them back here, and they were like, we think you should stay there a little longer. So I wasn't able to participate in the event last year outside of Facebook Live, watching Jessica walk around. So I didn't have last year really to compare it to. So when our client got up the other day to share her story, she was at our banquet last year, and
she was at our first memorial too.
She was one of our clients last year, and she got up on stage last year and said that she had actually thought about abortion during that pregnancy, which she had never let us know. We learned that about her that night, if I remember correctly, and she was post-abortive. And
a Christian woman.
I knew she had come to our memorial earlier that summer. I didn't really know a whole lot of details of her story outside of being post-abortive, obviously. But to hear her get up at our event the other day and talk about how that event last year was so freeing to her to be able to move forward, just the impact and the magnitude of that event last year for one person like that who had been carrying, that's a heavy burden to carry around with you having aborted 4 children. And to listen to somebody talk about, it was almost like for people who are bulimic, she just felt like she needed to have an abortion every time. And so she went forward and eliminated the ability to get pregnant so that she didn't ever have that feeling to want to do that again. To me, that was super powerful, and it gave you another perspective on something that I didn't have a perspective on before, which gave us some other great ideas for our event next year.
It's definitely going to grow and develop.
Yeah, and really developing next year's event to have even a larger portion of it being an event for women to be able to come and find the freedom, healing, hope, and forgiveness that Jesus does by putting more things in our program that will allow them hopefully to lay down that burden that they're carrying. And we can help facilitate that by providing an event that gives them the opportunity to come and memorialize that baby, ask for forgiveness, and lay it to rest.
Amen.
That's a great way. That's a great descriptor, and that's exactly how I believe that the event was. When you take into consideration, not only we've talked about the spiritual aspect and the loss of just the personal hurt that you take upon when you do go down the road of an abortion. You also take into consideration the conversation pieces when we talk about, each step of it. So we've got the pro-choice aspect. Okay, well, you choose to make this decision. Well, this is a decision that you're putting forth, and this is something that's going to have it's going to have an impact in you, whether it be immediately or in the future. It's not going to go away. But when you sit back and you take into consideration the family aspect of it, that's the blessing. It's growing God's people. It's God's children. And when we sit back and we take the time to help people understand, not only is it a decision that could affect them in a negative aspect, but what about the positive aspect of it? I mean, that's the blessing. When you sit back and you have the ability to sit back and say, I have a baby girl or a baby boy that's going to be coming to this world, and from day one, their eyes are bright, they're sparkling, and they're looking at you and they're saying, what next? What part of the adventure? Or what are we going to do together before we go to the glory of God? And that's the part we really want to focus on. It's sitting back and saying, how do we achieve that level of satisfaction, success, and glory for each individual person that comes in? So when you come in, from the moment you see that child and you have the ability to sit back and bond, connect, and know that this is something that God gave me, it's a gift. With that gift, how do I make it so these folks want to improve? How do we help them make it better? And that's that conversation.
And we're looking at our clock. I called him a few weeks ago, and I was like, hey, can you come help me with this thing? And he's done. He said, yeah. And then we sat down, and he told me this whole idea that he had, and he'd been sitting there watching stuff at First Choice. And hence this new organization has come about that he is full steam ahead with. And it's going to be awesome, and working with First Choice to help these girls with the next steps that he mentioned when he described it a little while earlier. So God's just moving all the pieces of the puzzle. Dave's part of our puzzle.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that you brought that last point up. I did have something that I want to chime in on before we move on, and that is that one of our volunteers actually sent us a message. I don't know if it was, I think it was on the day of the memorial. And the long and short of it was, that by our gift of children coming into our life, it is also how God stretches us, grows us, works a lot of these imperfections out in our behavior and our personalities and our character, and therefore our spirit. And that, to me, was mind-blowing, because you see the shape that the world is in today, and you see how many abortions are happening, and that sanctification process, that molding isn't happening because people are killing the very gifts that God is using in order to make those changes in their lives. Yeah. So I'm so glad that you brought that up.
That was a fast half hour, like always.
But we do, if you missed our second memorial, we do want to let you know, save your date. We have a banquet coming up on October 6th, so pencil that into your calendars, because we want you to be there.
Yes, we want you to be there. We want you to include your church, your friends, your family, your co-workers, anybody who might love life, we want them to be a part of this. We will be having our next memorial next year, so you can save the date for whatever Saturday falls right around that time for the Roe versus Wade overturn. With that, it's summertime. We need help financially always. There's a summer dip, so if you can at all assist us with that, if you can do a baby bottle campaign for us at your church, we would forever be grateful. And our time is up. So we're going to thank you for joining us. Thank you, Dave, Michelle,
Thank you.
Allison. God bless you guys.
Have a great week.
Bye.
Thanks for joining your ambassadors for the unborn on the Fight for Life radio today and every Thursday on KKVV 1060 AM, the best news radio, the gospel airship.
If you'd like to support the cause of saving unborn babies, or if you have a question you'd like us to answer on the air, go to fcpsfriends.org or call us at 702-294-CARE. Again, that number is 702-294-2273.
On behalf of his little ones, thank you and God bless.